A cold gust of wind rushed through the open warehouse door as Ethan Miller stood frozen in the center of the room, his heart pounding so hard it felt like the concrete beneath him trembled too. Moments earlier, his boss, Mr. Raymond Grant, the man who controlled Ethan's paycheck, future, and the fragile stability he fought to give his little daughter, had accused him of something he didn't do. Now the entire staff stood in a silent semicircle, watching the single dad gather enough courage to lift his eyes and ask the question that would change everything. With a voice that shook yet carried a strange strength, Ethan whispered, "Why did you lie?" That one question sliced the tense air like a blade, making even the humming machines quiet down as if waiting for the truth to rise from the shadows. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, second chances, and if you want more emotional stories like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Ethan's entire life had been a series of battles fought quietly. After losing his wife to a sudden illness, he had become both mother and father to his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, whose smile was the only light able to pierce through the dense fog of his exhaustion. He worked long shifts in the shipping department of Grant Industries, a place where the smell of cardboard and engine oil clung to his clothes and fatigue wrapped around him like a second skin. Every day he arrived before sunrise, gripping a thermos of cheap coffee as though it were the last thing keeping him upright. Yet he never complained because Lily deserved stability, security, and a future that didn't mirror the hardships etched onto his face. People around him acknowledged his dedication, but few truly understood the heavy silence he carried home every night. And Mr. Grant, the company's cold, calculating CEO, had always seemed like the kind of man who saw workers as numbers on a spreadsheet, not human beings with hearts that could bruise. That morning had begun like any other until Ethan was suddenly summoned to the main floor in a sharp, clipped voice over the intercom. Confused and already anxious, he hurried downstairs only to find security waiting for him as employees murmured among themselves. Mr. Grant stood in the middle of the room with a tablet in hand and an expression carved from stone. He announced loudly that a shipment worth thousands had gone missing and that surveillance footage pointed directly to Ethan. A wave of disbelief crashed over Ethan as dozens of eyes landed on him with accusation, sympathy, or disappointment. He tried to speak, tried to explain he had never even been near the loading bay that night, but Grant silenced him with a raised hand and declared he would be suspended immediately. Humiliation burned through Ethan like acid. His chest tightened, his vision blurred, and all he could think of was Lily. How would he feed her? How would he pay rent? How could a single accusation crush everything he worked so hard to build? Desperation pushed him to step forward and ask the very question that now held the entire room hostage. Ethan had no idea this moment would uncover a truth deeper and darker than anything he imagined. As he waited for Mr. Grant's reply, his thoughts spiraled back to the night before when he had found Lily crying because her school wanted money for a field trip he couldn't afford. He remembered kneeling beside her and promising that he would find a way, that good days were coming, even if he wasn't sure he believed it anymore. Ethan's world revolved around a fragile hope he stitched together each day, and being falsely accused felt like someone tearing it apart with their bare hands. The other employees watched him with mixed emotions. Some had always admired his quiet strength, while others doubted him because poverty often becomes unfairly tangled with suspicion. Still, no one expected him to stand so boldly in front of the most feared man in the company. Mr. Grant finally lifted his head, but his expression flickered, not with anger or cold confidence, but with something strange, almost like guilt. The room shifted as people leaned closer, sensing a crack in the CEO's usual armor. Ethan noticed it too, but he couldn't understand why a man so powerful would frame a struggling single father. As seconds stretched painfully, whispers circulated among the workers about how odd the whole situation felt, how the footage Mr. Grant mentioned was never shown, and how the missing shipment didn't even match Ethan's assigned route. A few supervisors exchanged uneasy glances, realizing something was terribly off. Ethan's hands trembled, but his voice remained steady as he repeated, "Why did you lie about me?" The question echoed, and this time, it struck Mr. Grant like a blow he wasn't prepared to take. Finally, Mr. Grant exhaled shakily and looked around the room as though the walls themselves were judging him. His voice cracked slightly as he admitted that he had no proof Ethan stole anything. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Before anyone could fully grasp what was happening, the older man's shoulders slumped and he confessed that the lie wasn't about theft, it was about fear. Fear of losing his company, fear of his investors walking away, fear of a financial crisis he had kept hidden for months. He needed a scapegoat, someone who wouldn't fight back. And in his eyes, Ethan, the quiet, overworked single dad, seemed like the safe target. Gasps filled the warehouse as people realized the CEO had used an innocent man to deflect blame away from himself. Ethan's knees nearly gave out, not because of the injustice, but because of the weight of finally hearing the truth. But the revelations didn't stop there. Mr. Grant's son, Andrew Grant, who had recently returned from abroad, stepped forward from the crowd. Unlike his father, Andrew was known for his humility and fairness. He revealed that he had investigated a series of internal discrepancies and discovered that someone from the administrative branch had been manipulating shipment logs. When Andrew confronted his father privately, the older man panicked and shifted blame onto the easiest target he could find, Ethan. Now forced to face the consequences publicly, Mr. Grant's facade crumbled entirely. The room was silent except for the soft hum of machinery and Ethan's unsteady breathing. For the first time, people saw that the intimidating CEO was really a man drowning in his own fears and poor decisions. Ethan stood still, absorbing every word, but something inside him refused to feel hatred. He had been hurt, humiliated, and nearly destroyed, yet when he looked at Mr. Grant trembling before him, he also saw a broken human being. The workers watched in, or as Ethan's eyes softened instead of hardening. The quiet man who rarely spoke suddenly became the strongest person in the building. He stepped forward gently and said he didn't want revenge, only the truth and the chance to keep providing for his daughter. This unexpected compassion struck the room like lightning. Even Andrew seemed overwhelmed by Ethan's grace. Mr. Grant, ashamed and emotional, apologized deeply, not just with words, but with tears that slipped down the face people once believed was carved from stone. In an unprecedented move, Mr. Grant publicly reinstated Ethan, offering him not only a promotion but financial support for Lily's education. Ethan refused the money at first, but Andrew encouraged him to accept it as acknowledgement of the wrong that had been done to him. Slowly, the atmosphere in the warehouse shifted from tension to something softer, almost healing. Workers approached Ethan one by one, some applauding, others thanking him for standing up not only for himself but for everyone who had ever been silenced by fear of authority. Ethan felt overwhelmed by the kindness, and for the first time in a long time, he felt truly seen. As the meeting ended, Ethan walked outside and breathed in the crisp afternoon air with a freedom he hadn't felt in years. His mind drifted to Lily waiting at home with a drawing she made of the two of them holding hands beneath a bright blue sky. She always drew the sun too big, but he loved it because it reminded him that even in their darkest days, she still believed in more light than darkness. He thought of how he would tell her that things were getting better, that her dad had fought a silent battle today and somehow won without raising his voice or losing his heart. He imagined her proud little smile and the way she would hug him with all the love her small arms could offer. And now, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart even a little, please don't forget to like, share, and comment. Your engagement helps more people find stories that remind them of hope, courage, and the unexpected strength that lives inside ordinary people. Before we close, I have a special request. Comment below what part of Ethan's journey moved you the most and why.